Okay, so I've been at the side of the road and I've gone and waffled on about the music that I like to play and why I actually enjoy being in a truck alone. Gives me a chance to do videos where I talk about things which would bore the pants off Beth, which wouldn't be such a bad thing. But anyway, there are better ways of doing everything, aren't there? Anyway, I've now had an aborted trip to find out, well, to buy some flashing that goes on the roofing part of what we're doing at our project. And when I got there, the note that Beth had given me was not enough, and I had this deep feeling that it was not going to be enough. But no matter how many times I would say, now, are you sure that they will know what I'm talking about? Yes, absolutely, they will. And of course, yes, absolutely, they didn't. And so now I'm on my way back home. I've done my other chores, been to the bank and stuff like that. But I wanted to make a video about this because it illustrates some of the things that foreigners never seem to mention. So you either, foreigners that I've seen and talked to, mostly fall into two categories. You have Alvin, my dear friend who is now passed a few months ago. Alvin was an American and the happiest foreigner that I know, because he never complained. He was absolutely adored by the children that he really adopted by marrying Vivian, and they were the happiest couple. They made use of their time and of their resources. They had fun. They went to resorts. They travelled here, travelled there. They took advantage of any offer that came through on a resort, and they took the family, and he was content. Now, the other side of the coin is people, foreigners who bring with them the baggage that they have sought to leave behind. And so you get someone, I've spoken to someone who looked like a Harley Davidson rider. That was the image that he seemed to portray. And he talked about how he was tired of the regimentation, he was tired of the regulation, how everything in America, he was an American, and everything back home was over-regulated. You couldn't drive down the street without your crash helmet when you were on your Harley, even though that was your choice. And so he was tired of what I call the conditioning of living in an orderly society. Now, when you come to the Philippines, it's not an orderly society. It's a little bit like Dodge City used to be to me, and I like that. I accept that. I accept that I may be traveling behind a motorcycle that has 7 people on it. And none of them have a crash helmet, and the rider may not have a crash helmet, or he may have one of those pink ones which costs about 200 or 300 pesos, about, I don't know, $10, and he's driving a motorcycle with another 3 or 4 or 5 people on it in slippers, in what Aussies called thongs, and you might call flip-flops, and Filipinos call them slippers. So they're barefoot and riding a motorcycle. And so, but I accept this, and I don't want to change the Philippines. In fact, that's a dilemma for me, because I see it changing, and I want it to be like it was when I got here, because every day I actually try to hold on to what I see was the magic. And I've talked to my friend Michael, who, if you followed our videos, you might know that Michael is a Mancunian from Manchester, the same as me, a Brit originally. Now, when I went into the army and later became a professional musician, and then I went about 30 years ago, I went to America, which had always been my dream. Well, my friend Michael went to New Zealand. You can see Michael's farm, Zamora. I think he is an expat living in the Philippines. He has a farm, Zamora, which is the nearest thing to paradise that I can describe. It is an incredible place. So have a look at Michael's. But Michael agrees with me that you need to get up in the morning and you need to reconnect. For the moment, you need to reconnect who you are, where you came from, and where you are right now. Now, that's the good side of it. And I know other people who feel the same, who come here and they appreciate the magic. They're married to a Filipino, as Michael is and as I am, and they come and they keep recreating the way that they thought when they came. Now, they're one side of the coin, and the other side of the coin are the ones that I just described. The biker who is running away from, as I am, running away from all of the regulation and the regimentation and the conditioning of living in an orderly society. So, you know, there are lots of reasons why you should want to live in an orderly society. There's not so much now, but used to be a sense of law and order. And you could dispute almost everything that I'm saying now, because in America it doesn't seem like this is a guaranteed thing, to be safe and to be the willing subject of law and order. Lots of police, yes, but are they there to serve you? I don't think so. Whereas here in the Philippines, in Bohol, I have nothing but good things to say about the police. We work with them, we partner with them. The police, if Beth and I are building a house for the poor, and we go around to either Talabon or Atafi police station and say, we need some help, would you like to give us some volunteer help? They will send around as many as 10 officers in their work gear, ready and willing to work. And this is incredible. These are police officers who really are here to serve, to protect and serve. And they use their judgment. They are, as I say, I can find no fault with them, and I can find a lot of good things to say. I just find them willing to still use their judgment on things. They don't automatically stop someone. They're not like computers, which I found in the UK and in the US. This is what I found, that they are driven by their own regulation to make life, for me, not so good. I was glad to leave all of that behind. Well, why will life be so different here for a foreigner? Look, it's a given. There are so many who are talking about the wonderful relationship that they have with their spouse, their Filipino. It seems it's a given. It goes without saying. and that each one of these guys says that his Filipina is beautiful. It also seems to be a given for me, allowing for the fact that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But if you love long raven black hair, brown eyes, slightly darker skin, because there's such a lot of money spent on advertising skin whitening products here, which I don't go along with. Personally, I don't want to have a white Filipina, a white coloured Filipina. Okay, I love the way that they are, and all of that is there, and it's a given that they are gentle, that they are loving. All of these things are a given. But what I don't hear many people talking about is that unless, as, let me see, the only one I know is Brian Ahern, and there is Bud Brown, I think, also speaks the language because he is interested in learning languages. So Bud Brown speaks whatever the language is there, Tagalog. In our place, Bohol, it is mainly Cebuana, not Cebuana, although that is spoken. Tagalog sometimes spoken, but my mother-in-law can speak Tagalog, but she's not really comfortable with it, so it's not a choice. But if you want to understand what's being said on television, if you are such that you watch television, which I don't actually. Sorry, I'm just at an intersection. Okay. So we're back to Visayan, and I've been thinking, I was corrected on this, but I've been thinking that you can't easily find lessons in Visayan. I've now bought a couple of books, and I am trying to learn Visayan. But unless you speak Visayan, then you're going to experience a certain isolation, because you will not have that familiar way of speaking your own language, because even though the Filipinos, including wives, may seem as if they understand you perfectly, once you start checking, you will find that they don't. They're not that fluent, although obviously there are exceptions to the rule. I was going to say the Ahern family, Brian Ahern apparently is fluent in Visayan, so he's the exception along with Bob Brown. Well, I'm not the exception. I've been lazy, and I feel a certain amount of isolation. And the foreigners that I speak to will admit the same. The other thing is that your Filipina, no matter how much she loves and admires you, will listen to a Filipino before she will listen to you. So I won't mention names, but a friend of mine is actually a highly trained engineer, and he admits that his wife will accept the viewpoint of a taxi driver before she will listen to him. And I don't think that this is just common to the Philippines, okay? It's not. It's what I have always thought of as the husband syndrome, and that is that for many women, as soon as they marry the person that they love, they cease to think of them as highly skilled people. Another foreigner that I know, he is highly accomplished, an extremely intelligent man. He's a qualified chef. He is a pilot, and has numerous life skills to draw on, but he still says the same thing. So when you come here, you have to have a way of handling this, because it will drive you crazy. Another friend of mine, his son was the kind of guy at home that was very highly skilled at what he did and was something of a troubleshooter. So what used to happen was that when companies of various kinds were having trouble in a particular area, they would have him come along, and he would come along and he could spot everything that was going that needed to be changed in order to be more efficient. And I remember we videoed having a tire repaired and changed. And he watched that video and he commented, "Oh my God, no safety hats, no safety shoes, no steel capped boots. They haven't put an axle stand under the wheel. They've got it on a hydraulic jack. There are people in the truck while the wheel is being changed." Just so many things that he could see according to his frame of reference and his skill level. He could see that were wrong. And even though later apparently he did come to the Philippines and enjoy his stay, when he was talking about living here, I said, "I'll give you 2 or 3 days and you will be a complete madman. You will be totally insane, because you see all the mistakes." And you have to be over that. You have to be over that thing where you make yourself right, super right, by making others super wrong. I always remember the guy that was a mason, used to working at a very high level of skill in stone, laying brick, laying block. You mention it, and he was highly skilled at it and had done it for most of his life. And he looked at the way that brickwork, block work is done here, and he said, "Oh my God, when I come out there, I am going to show them how it's done." No, he's not, because Filipinos have their way of working. And to illustrate the point, I was driving along with my son when I first came here. This is long before my life in Bohol, and we were driving along in this little truck, and there's a guy walking along the road. I said, "Look at this guy, he's walking in the road like he owns the place." And then I thought about what I'd said, and well, he's a Filipino. Actually, he does own the place, in a manner of speaking. So you got to understand that even when you come with the best of intentions, you're not going to be listened to. If you think that you're going to step off that plane, and when your foot hits the tarmac, the Philippines is going to say, "Oh, thank God he's here, now he's going to show us how we should be behaving and living." It's not going to happen. And one of the things that you need to learn through your isolation, because you haven't learned the language, through your isolation of thinking that you have made yourself understood where you haven't, thinking that everybody understands every word that you say because they don't say otherwise, you're going to have to work around that, because the one life skill that Filipinos and Filipinas have is they know how to have a measure of happiness no matter how bad the situation is. We, in our work, in our mission to help, we have been to islands which were devastated in the last storm, the super typhoon, which actually the West seems to know very little about. Odette came, and in our particular area, it was in the path of destruction, and it went over some of the smaller islands that we visited, taking food, and it completely ruined them. And yet, when we got there with food. We're not talking about taking a troop ship over there loaded down with hundreds of bags of rice. We're talking about taking one meal. We took one meal and we fed them one meal, and we hoped to bring some cheer. They would take the one meal, find a place in the ruins of the beach, in the one that the images are strongest in my mind, and they would have fun. When they saw me looking down and across at one place where they'd put a piece of scrap metal into some kind of a makeshift table and sat round on bits of blocks of, well, hollow block, and they saw me looking, and I waved, and they waved back, and they smiled, and not just for me, they were having fun. So in among all of that, all of that devastation, having lost everything, Filipinos will still be able to laugh and have a measure of happiness. Whereas in other cases where complete devastation has occurred, the people are in a state of complete overwhelm. Not so the Philippines. I have every admiration for the inner resources of every Filipino, from child to older man and woman. Well, I got to back up because somebody is coming down. No, there's a motorcycle in the way. Come on, let's go. Yes, it's a narrow road. We just turned into our road. Well, so the question of being understood, of understanding what the situation is, of being included in conversations, you're going to have to learn the language. Otherwise you will experience a measure, as I've been talking about, of isolation that comes from just not knowing what's going on for a lot of the time. So I'll end off and thank you for being with me.